Welcome back to our deep dive into Agentic AI at 369 Superflights.
It's great to be back.
We've spent some time already looking at the reasons why 369 Superflights is embracing this whole Agentic AI thing.
Yeah, and even got a glimpse of some of the initial proposals.
Exactly. But
Today, we're going deeper.
much deeper.
We're going full text.
We're talking blueprints, schematics,
the nuts and bolts.
or getting into those nitty-gritty questions that 369 Superflights enterprise data architects had
Oh, yeah, they had some real head-scratchers.
about how to actually make Agentic AI work in their environment.
It's a complex environment they're working with, for sure.
Big time. So are you ready to decode some of these answers with me and really see how they plan to build this data foundation?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it.
Strong enough to support all these Agentic AI ambitions.
What's fascinating here is they're not starting from scratch.
I know.
I mean, they've got data coming out of their ears.
Oh, bet.
It's everywhere from SAP to ServiceNow, databases, you name it.
Yeah.
Even public websites. The challenge is, how do you harness all that
Right.
into a system their AI agents can actually use?
It's like having all the ingredients,
All the ingredients for a gourmet meal.
but no recipe.
Exactly.
So let's talk about that first step, data connectivity
Okay.
and ingestion.
Mhm.
How are they going to pull all this data in from these different sources and get it into this platform?
They're proposing a hybrid approach,
Oh.
which is actually pretty smart.
Right.
So think about different pipelines for different types of data.
Okay.
So for the high volume, real-time stuff,
Like what kind of stuff?
think sensor data booking systems that constant stream of information, they'll use a push method.
Okay.
It's like a direct line the data gets sent as soon as it's generated.
So instant messaging for data.
Yeah, exactly. But for other sources like databases, they might use a pull method, more like batch orders for data.
Gotcha.
And they're even looking at APIs and webhooks to automate a lot of this.
Which makes a lot of sense.
More efficient, more reliable,
Yeah, I bet. But, security has got to be a huge concern,
of course.
especially when you're talking about pulling data from public websites.
Public websites. Yeah, you can't just let any AI agent loose on the internet.
Definitely not. So
Right.
what are they doing about that?
They are very aware of this.
Okay, good.
And they've got this multi-layered approach
Okay.
to security, especially for those external sources.
Like what?
Strict access controls validating data sources so they're trustworthy, sanitizing the data to remove any vulnerabilities.
So they're not just opening up the floodgates and letting all this data come in willy-nilly.
Oh, no.
They're taking precautions.
It's very controlled.
Yeah. So let's say the data is coming in, it's secure. Where does it all go?
It's like a well-organized data city
Ooh, I like
with
that.
different districts for different types of data.
Okay, so what kind of districts are we talking about here?
Well, they're thinking about using Neptune, which is a graph database,
Okay.
to store the relationships between different data points.
Okay.
So it's like a map that shows you how everything connects.
I like that, a map of relationships.
So which flight's linked to which crew member, which passengers on which flight, all that kind of stuff.
So not just raw data, but the connections, the context.
Of context is key.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
So where does all the rest of the information go? The raw data itself.
For that, they're considering a bunch of different storage options depending on the need.
Makes sense.
So for example, they've got SageMaker Feature Store for handling features for machine learning models.
Right.
And then for temporary storage during processing, there's S3 and EFS. Those are the workhorses.
Right.
And then for smaller bits of data that need to be accessed quickly, they're thinking about DynamoDB.
So it's really a sophisticated setup.
It is.
Like a city with different neighborhoods.
Absolutely.
Each with its own purpose.
Each specialized.
But with so much data flowing around,
Yeah.
how do they keep it organized and accessible?
That's where metadata management and data cataloging come in.
Okay.
Think of it as the city planning department. Right.
Making sure everything's got a clear address and a purpose.
So everyone knows where to find things.
Yeah, and it's not just about tidiness. It's about making sure the data is actually understandable and usable.
Like a directory for the data city.
Exactly.
So you don't get lost.
Exactly. And they're proposing to use Data Zone for this.
Data's are.
It'll be the central hub for all their metadata, all the technical details about the data, its format, its structure,
Okay.
but also business definitions, so everyone's speaking the same language.
So it's like a dictionary and a map all in one.
Yeah, and here's the really interesting part. AI-specific metadata.
Ooh, what's that about?
They're thinking ahead about how AI agents will interact with the data.
Okay.
So DataZone will also store things like prompt templates,
What are those?
the instructions you give AI agents and model versions so they can track how the AI models change over time.
So they're not just making data accessible, they're making it AI ready.
Exactly. That's the goal.
That's pretty cool. but, raw data.
Raw data, it can be messy. It can be a mess, right? How do they clean it all up before unleashing the AI agents?
That is the crucial point. That's where data processing and transformation come in.
Okay.
It's like the sanitation department, making sure the data is clean and usable.
Okay, so what are their tools for this?
Well, they're thinking about Glue Data Brew for interactive cleaning. That's like a data scrubbing brush.
Okay, I like these analogies.
And for bigger automated jobs, there's Glue. That's the data washing machine.
So they're refining the data.
Refining it, making sure it's pristine.
Yeah, before it goes to the AI.
Exactly.
This is a very elaborate system we're uncovering here.
It is a complex system.
Yeah, and I'm sure security is top of mind every step of the way.
Oh, absolutely. Security is woven into the very fabric of this.
So can you give me some examples of what these security measures actually look like?
Well, they'll use IAM and Active Directory to manage who has access to what.
Right.
And then lake formation to control access to their data lake.
Okay.
And of course, they'll encrypt the data both at rest and in transit.
So it's like Fort Knox for data.
Yeah, pretty much.
But even with all these precautions, it seems like it would be easy to lose track of where data came from.
That's true.
And how it's been changed, especially in a system this complex.
Right, and that's where data provenance and audit trails come in. It's like the city's historical records, documenting every change in transaction.
So every change is tracked.
Every single one. They're proposing to use tools like Glue Data Catalog and Open Lineage to do this.
Wow, that's pretty thorough.
Yeah, it's a detailed logbook showing where the data came from, how it was transformed, who accessed it.
So a digital paper trail.
Exactly.
For every piece of data.
Get everything.
That's amazing. But what about making sure that the data itself is accurate and trustworthy?
Good question. That's where data quality and data governance come in.
Okay, so what are we talking about here?
It's like the city's regulatory framework making sure everything meets the standards.
Got it.
They've outlined a data quality framework, including data profiling to identify potential issues early on. It's like a quality check on incoming supplies.
I see.
And then they've got data quality rules and validation tools that'll flag anything that doesn't meet the standards.
So it's like a team of inspectors making sure everything's up to code.
A team of data inspectors.
What about data governance then? How are they going to enforce all their policies and standards?
They're putting a big emphasis on ownership and stewardship.
Okay.
So clearly defining who's responsible for each piece of data.
Right.
And making sure they follow the rules, and they're going to leverage Data Zone to manage all these policies.
Wow.
And ensure compliance.
So it sounds like they're building a really comprehensive and robust data foundation here.
They are. They're thinking about everything.
They really are, and every detail is carefully considered.
Yeah.
But I have to admit, I'm a little lost when it comes to this whole prompt engineering thing.
Prompt engineering.
Yeah, it sounds very sci-fi to me.
It does sound futuristic.
Yeah.
But it's a really important aspect of working with these large language models, which are basically the brains behind these AI agents.
Right.
Prompt engineering is about crafting effective prompts that guide the AI to produce the results you want.
So it's not just asking a question. It's about asking it in the right way.
Exactly.
To get the right answer.
It's about giving the AI context and helping it understand what you really need.
Okay, that makes sense. What happens, though, when you need multiple agents to work together on a problem?
That is a great question.
How do you coordinate all that?
That's where multi-agent orchestration comes in.
Multi-agent orchestration.
Coordinating the actions of multiple agents to achieve a goal.
So like a team of specialists all working together.
Exactly, each with their own strengths.
Cool.
And for this, they're thinking about using AWS step functions.
Okay.
It's like our conductor analogy, remember?
Yeah.
It defines the workflow and makes sure all the AI agents are working together smoothly.
So there's like instructions.
Instructions, a plan.
For all the agents.
Yeah.
What happens if one of them messes up, though, or runs into a problem? Does everything just stop?
That's where error handling and fault tolerance come in.
Right.
They're proposing things like retry mechanisms to give the agent a second chance and circuit breakers to prevent a small failure from becoming a big one.
So safety nets and emergency brakes.
Exactly.
I like that. And then there are those dead letter queues we talked about.
Yeah, like a lost and found for messages
Exactly.
that couldn't be processed.
So it seems like they're building a really resilient system.
They are.
One that can adapt and keep going.
That's the goal.
Even if there are problems along the way.
That's right.
This is all very impressive.
It's a big undertaking.
But what about the AI models themselves? They can't just be static, right?
No, it can't.
Data changes, new information comes along.
Yeah.
How do they keep everything up to date?
You're right. And that's where AI model lifecycle management comes in. MLOps for short.
MLOps.
It's about managing the entire lifecycle of the models from development and training
Okay.
to deployment and monitoring.
So a continuous improvement cycle.
They'll have different versions of their AI models, just like software.
Okay.
So they can track changes roll back if needed.
Right.
And they'll retrain the models automatically as new data becomes available.
So the AI is always learning and improving?
Always learning.
That's really cool.
It is.
But with all these moving parts, how do they even begin to monitor a system this complex?
Monitoring is key.
Yeah, it sounds like a huge job.
It is. They're proposing to track metrics from every level.
Wow.
From the infrastructure to the performance of individual agents.
So it's like a digital nervous system.
Yeah, a great way to put it.
For the whole platform.
These sensors everywhere.
And all that data coming in, what do they do with it?
They're going to use analytics to turn that raw data into actionable insights.
All right.
They'll use tools like Athena to query and analyze the data in S3 and maybe QuickSight to visualize it.
So it's like having a team of data analysts looking for patterns and insights.
Exactly. They're looking for ways to improve the platform.
So it's not just about collecting data for the sake of it.
No, it's all about improvement.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But how does this Agentic AI platform actually fit into 369 Superflight's existing systems and workflows?
That's the last piece of the puzzle integration. They're going with an API-first approach.
What does that mean?
So all the core functionalities will be accessible through well-defined APIs.
Okay.
Which makes it really easy to connect with other systems, both old and new.
So like building bridges between different parts of the city.
Exactly.
What kind of tools are they using for this?
They're looking at API Gateway to manage and secure the APIs. It's like a secure entry point to the data city.
I see.
And then Service Mesh for communication between services, message queues for asynchronous messaging, and even event-driven architecture to trigger actions automatically.
So it's like they're building a whole new digital ecosystem.
They are.
For 369 Superflights with Agentic AI at the center of it all.
That's right.
The level of detail and planning is incredible.
It's impressive.
It really is. And we've only just scratched the surface.
Yeah, we've got more to cover.
We do in our next segment. We'll dive even deeper into some of those specific tools they're considering, like Neptune for the knowledge graph.
Yeah, Neptune's a fascinating one.
And SageMaker Feature Store for machine learning.
And that's key for their AI models.
Stay tuned.
Definitely more to come. Back again, ready for more.
Oh, yeah. Bring on the tech deep dive.
All right, well, we talked about Neptune for their knowledge graph, and it's a perfect choice for handling all those complex relationships.
Yeah, because a knowledge graph is all about connections.
Right? Exactly. It's like a social network for their data.
Ooh, I like that.
Mapping out how everything is connected.
So you could have employees, flights,
route graphs, the whole shebang.
And it shows how they all relate to each other.
Exactly. So instead of just data points in isolation, you get context.
Which is crucial for AI.
Absolutely. So imagine this.
Okay.
There's a weather event causing some major disruptions. An AI agent using this Neptune knowledge graph could instantly identify all the flights affected.
Oh, wow.
But it goes even further.
Okay.
It could also pull up connecting flights, passenger manifest crew schedules, even aircraft availability.
All linked together.
We're all connected so the AI can make informed decisions, rerouting, rescheduling, even proactively notifying passengers.
Wow, that's like having an air traffic controller.
With a 360-degree view.
Yeah, who can see everything.
Exactly.
So we also talked about SageMaker Feature Store. What's the big deal with that?
Well, think of it like this.
Okay.
Building AI models is like baking a cake.
All right, I'm listening.
You need the right ingredients, and those ingredients are features.
Features.
Specific pieces of data processed and transformed to be useful for training the AI.
So for predicting flight delays, what kind of features are we talking?
Weather conditions, historical flight data,
Okay.
even social media sentiment about the airline.
Interesting.
So it's not just the raw data, it's about preparing it.
Making it AI ready.
Exactly. And SageMaker Feature Store is like a central repository
Okay.
where they can store, discover, and share these features.
Across teams and projects.
Exactly. So they don't have to reinvent the wheel every time.
Makes sense. It's efficient.
Very efficient. It's like having a pantry stocked with prepped ingredients.
Ready to go.
Ready to go.
But what about situations where they need something more customized?
Ah, good point.
We've talked about AWS tools.
Yeah.
What if they need to bring in their own code or use tools that aren't from AWS?
That's where containerized workloads come in.
Containers.
Think of them like self-contained boxes,
Okay.
holding all the code libraries and dependencies.
So they can run whatever they need.
Exactly. But whether it's from AWS or not,
So it's flexible.
it is very flexible, like building with Legos.
I like that analogy. But with all these different pieces coming together,
Security's still top of mind.
it has to be right.
Absolutely. So beyond IAM and lake formation,
Yeah.
they're really focusing on data encryption.
Okay, tell me more.
They're proposing to use AWS KMS to encrypt data at rest and in transit.
Okay, so double encryption.
Essentially, it's like putting that data in a vault.
With multiple locks,
You got it. So even if someone broke in,
the data's still protected.
unreadable without the keys.
That's good to know, but what about human error?
Ah, yes, the human element.
What if someone accidentally deletes something or makes unauthorized changes?
That's why data provenance and audit trails are so important.
Right, those digital breadcrumbs.
Exactly. With Glue data catalog and open lineage,
Yeah.
they can track the entire journey of a piece of data.
From start to finish.
Every step of the way, who accessed it, what changes were made.
Like a security camera.
Always watching.
For data, that's impressive, but data quality has got to be a big focus too.
It's essential.
Because even the best AI is only as good as the data it's trained on, right?
Absolutely. Garbage in, garbage out.
Exactly. So
Yep.
what are they doing about data quality?
They've got a multi-pronged approach.
Okay.
They're planning to use data profiling tools like Glue, Data Brew, to identify potential issues early on.
So they're proactive.
Proactive, like quality control.
What happens if they find an issue, though?
Well, they're proposing a mix of automated and manual remediation.
Okay, so how does that work?
For common issues, they might use AWS Glue to automatically clean and transform the data.
Like our data washing machine again.
Exactly. But for more complex problems, they'll have data stewards.
Data stewards.
Think of them like data detectives
Interesting.
to manually review and correct the data.
So humans are still in the loop.
Absolutely, you need that human oversight.
We've covered a lot of technical ground here, but I'm curious about how people will actually interact with this platform.
That's a great question, and while they haven't outlined specific details, they'll likely leverage existing tools and frameworks to create intuitive interfaces.
Okay.
So think dashboards that allow users to easily interact with the AI agents, monitor their progress, and review the results.
So it's user-friendly.
When certain and accessible, that's the goal.
But with all these different pieces working together, how do they keep everything running smoothly?
That's where monitoring, observability, and analytics come in.
Right. Keeping an eye on everything.
They're proposing to collect metrics from every level of the system,
Okay.
from the infrastructure to the performance of the agents,
Like a team of digital doctors.
constantly checking the vital signs.
What tools are they using for this?
They're looking at CloudWatch, Prometheus, and X-Ray,
Wow. A whole suite of tools.
each with its own strengths.
What about security monitoring, though?
Security's paramount.
Of course.
They're taking a multi-layered approach here, too.
Like what?
They'll use CloudWatch logs to collect security events, guard duty to detect malicious activity,
Okay.
maybe even integrate with the SIEM system for central monitoring.
So they're really on top of it.
They're looking for any signs of trouble.
So all this data coming in from the monitoring tools, what do they do with it all?
That's where analytics come in. They'll use tools like Athena to query and analyze data in S3 and maybe QuickSight to visualize it all.
So it's about turning data into action.
Actionable insights. That's the goal.
I see. They're not just collecting data for the sake of it.
Nope. It's all about improvement.
But we've talked a lot about this platform in isolation. How does it actually fit into 369 Superflight's existing systems?
Good question. And that brings us back to integration.
Right, their API-first approach.
Exactly. All the core functionalities will be accessible through APIs
Making it easy to connect
to other systems.
seamlessly.
They're considering API gateway service mesh, message queues, even event-driven architecture.
It's a whole new digital nervous system.
It is.
With agentic AI at the heart of it.
The level of detail is incredible.
Mind-blowing, really. But I have a feeling there's more to come.
Oh, there's always more.
In our final segment, we'll delve into prompt engineering and multi-agent orchestration.
The really cutting-edge stuff.
Stay tuned. Okay, we're back for the final part of our deep dive, and I'm ready for the really mind-bending stuff.
I think you'll be impressed.
We've got prompt engineering and multi-agent orchestration.
We touched on prompt engineering before, but it's worth digging deeper.
Yeah, it seems like there's more to it than meets the eye.
It's not just about asking an AI agent a question.
Right. It's not like talking to Alexa.
It's about crafting that question to guide the AI's thinking.
To get the best possible answer.
Exactly. So you're giving it context, helping it understand your intent.
Okay, so it's like the difference between asking, what's the weather?
And saying, I need to pack for a trip. What kind of weather should I prepare for?
Right. You're giving it more information to work with.
Exactly. And there are different techniques for doing this.
Like what?
Well, you mentioned few-shot learning before giving the AI a few examples to work with.
Like showing it a model answer.
Exactly. And then there's chain of thought prompting.
Okay.
Where you encourage the AI to think out loud, so to speak.
So it explains its reasoning.
Yeah, step by step, so you can see how it arrived at its conclusions.
That's really important for trust and transparency.
Absolutely. But what about when you need a whole team of AI agents to work together?
Now that's what I'm really curious about.
That's multi-agent orchestration.
Multi-agent orchestration.
Oh, yeah.
It sounds so complex.
It is, but think of it like this.
Okay.
You've got all these agents, each with their own strengths.
Right.
And you need to coordinate their actions to achieve a common goal.
So it's like a team of experts.
Exactly. And AWS Step Functions acts as the conductor in this case.
The conductor.
Defining the workflow, making sure all the agents are working together harmoniously.
So it's like a set of instructions, a blueprint for the agents.
A digital sheet music, if you will.
I like that. What happens if one of the agents makes a mistake, though, or runs into a problem?
Well, they've built in mechanisms for error handling and fault tolerance.
Right? Those safety nets.
Exactly, things like retry mechanisms and circuit breakers.
To keep things running smoothly.
And, of course, dead letter queues for messages that couldn't be processed.
So they can be dealt with later.
Exactly. So it's a very resilient system.
That can adapt to problems.
And keep things moving forward.
That's really impressive. But with all this complexity, how do they keep track of everything?
Monitoring and analytics are key.
Makes sense.
They're going to be tracking metrics from every level of the system, looking for any signs of trouble.
So those monitoring tools we talked about, CloudWatch, Prometheus, X-Ray,
all those come into play here.
It's like having a whole team of mechanics constantly checking the engine.
Making sure everything's running smoothly.
But even with all the technology in place, it's still people who are ultimately in charge, right?
Of course, technology is just a tool.
Right.
It's up to humans to guide its development and use to make sure it aligns with our values and goals.
That's a really important point.
And in the case of 369 superflights, I think it's clear they're not just blindly adopting AI.
Yeah, they're being very thoughtful about it.
They're considering the ethical implications and putting safeguards in place.
That's good to hear. This whole data strategy is really impressive.
It is.
And it's clear they're committed to doing this right.
They're setting a high bar.
I'm excited to see what they accomplish with Agentic AI.
It's going to be interesting to watch.
We'll definitely be keeping an eye on this story and bring you more updates as they happen.
Absolutely. This is just the beginning.
So to wrap things up, we've explored the ins and outs of 369 Superflight's data strategy.
From the foundations to the cutting edge.
They're building a whole new digital ecosystem with AI at the heart of it.
It's a glimpse into the future of business.
And it all starts with data.
Data is the fuel.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Agentic AI.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.